How's everyone doing today? I'm Kris. This is my trusty rum and coke. It's much better. This is Caesar versus, this is the A word, and I don't like saying it. It's very inoffensive, very inappropriate and offensive. This is the battle of the V word. I don't like saying that. It's very disgusting and rude. 58 BC documentary. Let's get on with the video. By the way, I can't pronounce them. That's why I'm not saying them. In case you didn't get it.
While Caesar had been busy fighting the Helvetii at the Battle of Bibracte, elsewhere in Gaul, a new threat had emerged. The Suebi, a fiercely warlike Germanic people who had recently crossed the Rhine, were now looking to establish a new homeland in Gaul. These fierce warriors and their leader, Ariovistus, would challenge the Roman legions and provide Caesar with another opportunity to prove his mettle. But before we start our video, we would like to thank our sponsor, Wix. Wix is the free tool that you can use to create beautiful and professional websites for every purpose.
Thanks,
and build
Wix.
your own site by clicking on the link in the description or by entering the URL wix.com/kingsandgenerals.
Thanks, Wix.
The Suebi, led by their king Ariovistus, had first arrived in Gaul in 63 BC as mercenaries for the Sequani and Averni in their war against the Aedui, a Roman ally. The 15,000 warriors that Ariovistus initially brought proved decisive, helping to secure a crucial victory over the Aedui at the Battle of Magito Brega, which forced the Aedui to become a tributary to the Sequani. In response to this, the Aedui sent an envoy, Diviciacus, to ask Rome for help, but the Republic was still recovering from the political shock of the Catiline conspiracy and was distracted by an Allobroges revolt. The governor of Transalpine Gaul was ordered to help Rome's Gallic allies when possible, and in 59 BC, the Senate named Ariovistus a friend of the people of Rome to pacify him and keep him in check. Ariovistus used that time to consolidate his position. After helping the Sequani, he demanded a third of their lands as payment. The Sequani gave in, and Ariovistus began moving more of his people across the Rhine to settle in this new land. By 58 BC, as many as 120,000 Suebi had now crossed the Rhine and made their home in Gaul. Furthermore, Ariovistus was demanding more Sequani territory in order to settle an extra 24,000 Germans and had been taking hostages in order to keep the Sequani and Aedui obedient.
This is a side question. The Germans, I mean, obviously they've been around. The Germans didn't just spring up. Let me say that one again. The Germans didn't just spring up. I don't know what I just said. Did they ever... Is Germany the first country that they had? Or did they have... I mean, like, I always think Prussia is Germany. And I know that's not right. So, were they just German-speaking people who kind of had their own country? I'm sure I've asked this question before. And I'm drinking, so I don't exactly remember. I'm just... wow, I really threw my head on that one, didn't I? I'm a dope. Alright, back to the video.
Had to be done. Following his victory over the Helvetii, Caesar had taken some time to rest in Bibracte. Whilst encamped there, he was visited by a council of Gallic leaders and diplomats, led by Diviciacus. They complimented Caesar on his victory and implored him to intervene in the situation, pointing out that if the Germans continued their conquests, soon the Suebi would be directly bordering Roman territory. Caesar, again, was happy to oblige. As Ariovistus was a friend of Rome, however, Caesar could not immediately go to war. Instead, Caesar first invited Ariovistus to meet him, which was declined. Then he sent a diplomat to Ariovistus, asking him to return the Gallic hostages he had taken and to stop any hostilities. Caesar reminded him that if he were to comply, the Romans would still consider him a friend of Rome and not take any action against him. This was a good deal for Ariovistus. He'd be allowed to keep the lands he had already taken from the Sequani without a fight. Instead of accepting the terms, Ariovistus doubled down and sent a message back to Caesar saying that if the Romans could conquer where and how they liked, so could he. At the same time, the 24,000 new Germans who had crossed the Rhine were allowed to raise and pillage the Gallic lands as they pleased, with more Germans preparing to cross the river to join Ariovistus. Caesar now had his justification, as he had a legal decree from the Senate to protect Rome's Gallic allies. He could justify that the Suebi were threatening Rome's borders, and Ariovistus had forfeited his status as a friend of Rome by continuing to pillage the land of Rome's allies. Yet again, Caesar had the chance to market himself as the saviour of Gaul. Gathering his 6 legions, roughly 30,000 men, Caesar set out on the warpath.
Hey, stop using these for ear cleaning. They're even banned to use in the United Kingdom. Cotton swabs are not—
Stop using them, people.
Both Ariovistus and Caesar recognized the importance of Vesontio, the largest town in the Sequani territories. Well fortified and well supplied, it would be crucial to the war effort. Both forces began marching to the town. However, the Romans, marching day and night, were able to get there first. Caesar rested there briefly while supplying the legions. But as they rested, rumours began reaching the men of the strength and ferocity of the Germans. Even some of Caesar's officers began having their doubts, and it almost seemed as if Caesar would have a mutiny on his hands. Caesar was, however, able to restore order by insisting that he would face Ariovistus with just his most trusted 10th Legion if none others would follow. This inspired a fanatical loyalty in the 10th Legion, whilst the others, motivated by shame at being thought of as cowards, rallied, and the legions began to march out to meet the Suebi. Ariovistus, impressed with the speed at which the Romans had been able to move and take Vesontio, sent messages to Caesar asking for a meeting, with only some cavalry allowed as bodyguards, at the place called Vosges in modern-day Alsace. Caesar agreed, but the meeting did not go well, with both generals reiterating their positions. Ariovistus even went so far as to say that if he were to kill Caesar, there would be many in Rome that would be grateful, showing that he knew what the political situation in Rome was. Negotiations broke down after this, and the cavalry on both sides had a minor skirmish before retreating back to their respective camps.
I understand why he would say that, but it does no good. Like, there's no benefit to saying, you know, people don't like you. And if you were to happen to die here, they wouldn't be upset. Like, you can't say that. All you're doing is just you're feeding someone incentive to win. Yeah, you just can't say that. As much as, I'll be honest, I probably would be that person to say that, you can't say it. You just can't. River Third?
A few days later, Ariovistus asked for another meeting. Caesar, sensing a trap, sent his translators. This was just as well, as Ariovistus promptly captured the two and even considered burning them alive. With his plan to capture Caesar having failed, Ariovistus instead moved to battle.
Now Ariovistus, I don't like saying the A word. As far as I'm concerned now, you've just broke all the rules. you know, I'm no longer on your side, bud.
His army was composed of 6,000 cavalry, 16,000 light infantry, and the rest heavier infantry, for a total of around 30 to 40,000 men.
Nah.
Taking Caesar by surprise, Ariovistus marched his force quickly behind Caesar's position and set up camp, cutting off the Romans from their supply lines.
Wow, that's smart.
For 5 days, Caesar drew out his army in battle formation, willing to give battle, but Ariovistus was content to wait and strangle Caesar's supply line, only engaging in cavalry skirmishes. The Suebi cavalry fought in a unique fashion. For every horseman, there was an infantryman mixed into their formation. These men were lightly armed in order to keep up with the cavalry, and together provided a flexible and difficult force to handle, and the Roman cavalry got the worst of the fighting. Caesar, knowing that he would have to do something to break the stalemate or else risk being starved out, formed his legions into 3 lines. He marched this force past the Suebi position and ordered the 3rd line to begin construction of a 2nd camp, whilst the first 2 lines formed up to defend them. Ariovistus sent all of his light infantry and cavalry to harass the legionaries, but seemed reluctant to commit his entire force, and so they were easily held off by the Romans. With the 2nd camp complete, Caesar left 2 legions and part of his auxiliaries to defend it, whilst his other 4 legions returned to the main camp. Realizing that Caesar would now be able to use this 2nd camp to reconnect with his supply line, Ariovistus sent part of his army to attack this 2nd camp. The fighting was tough, lasting from midday into the evening, but eventually the Romans were able to repel the attack and even took some prisoners. Upon questioning these Suebi, Caesar learnt that Ariovistus had apparently been told by his priests not to commit his army until after the new moon, which was why he had not used his whole army to prevent the legions constructing their 2nd camp. Having learnt this, Caesar decided to go on the offensive. Leaving a small garrison in each camp, Caesar formed his 6 legions into a triple-axis formation with his cavalry in reserve and marched on the Suebi camp. The Germans came out to meet him, forming their wagons and baggage train into a semicircle behind them, their women standing on them urging the men on. Noticing that the German left flank was slightly weaker, Caesar positioned himself opposite on the Roman right and gave the order for his men to charge. But as he did, the Suebi also charged. Their assault was so fast and surprising that the Romans had to drop their pila before they could even throw them, drawing their swords and fighting in hand-to-hand combat. The Germans managed to form a shield wall, and neither side seemed able to gain an upper hand. Having been unable to throw their javelins before charging, the Romans struggled to break the shield wall as easily as they had at the Battle of Bibracte. After some hard fighting, the Roman right, led by Caesar, started to push back the German left. However, the Suebi on the right outnumbered their Roman opponents and were starting to get the upper hand. The Roman cavalry, led by the son of Triumvir Marcus Licinius Crassus, Publius, had not yet engaged in the battle, and from his position he could see the Roman left starting to crumble. Using his own initiative, Crassus led the 3rd line, which had been kept in reserve, to support the flank, arriving just in time to avoid a disaster. With their left flank broken and their right now under severe pressure, the Suebi army broke and ran. It is not known how many people died in this battle, but the Germans attempting to retreat through their wagons were said to have been packed so tightly that the dead could not even fall over.
Wow.
The entire Suebi force, including Ariovistus, fled back across the Rhine, pursued by the Roman cavalry. Caesar had won 2 important campaigns in one season. For now he left Labienus to winter with the legions in Sequani territory, whilst he attended to his governing duties in Cisalpine Gaul. but by wintering his legions in Gallic territory, Caesar was making a point. This was beginning to look less like intervention and more like occupation. With the Germanic threat dealt with, Caesar would be able to turn his attention to Gaul proper. Our series on the Gallic Wars is just starting, so make sure you...
That's pretty good. Yeah, once Ariovistus, I already forgot. Once he captured the translator, screw that guy. That's what you get. This is a good video. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Like and subscribe, or your house is going to get infested by ghost roaches. So, I mean, they're like prehistoric, and so they're not going anywhere. All right, have a good day, have a good night.